Now on this next slide, we ask job seekers, what are the following features that we have listed are most useful during a job search? So when you're using a job board, what is the most useful feature? And far and away, the number one is the ability to do a rigorous search, a search that allows you to use the variables that you want. Now, number two, and I thought this was interesting, is the ability to post my resume. There's a decent percentage of job sites out there that actually don't have a resume option. So this is, that might be of interest to them. And then the third option is, and this is something I haven't seen in previous surveys that I've conducted and some of the surveys I've followed, is the ability to communicate directly with hiring managers. So job seekers want to be able to interact with the employers that they're trying to connect with. So we're going to see this played out in some additional findings further on in the survey here. This is a question that it's worth asking even if you know up front that the data may be somewhat unreliable, which is, have you ever found a job through any of the following methods? This is a little different than the tracking that happens when you hand off a job seeker to an ATS, or a job seeker is maybe giving some information as they apply for a job on the site. This is the job seeker actually saying, okay, I'm thinking back, have I ever found a job this way? First and foremost, interesting enough, is referrals from friends and colleagues. It's interesting for me because I've certainly never found a job through a friend or colleague, but apparently it's not that uncommon. Company websites, general job boards, and then newspaper ads, still making a showing there, social media, and then a ways down there's the niche job board. And I think, again, that part of the issue with the niche job board is, if you have 100 job seekers in a room and they're looking for, let's say, an accounting job, I would suspect that as many as half of them don't know that there is, there are specific niche sites that are devoted to accounting jobs. They'll just automatically go to company sites and to the general job boards. So once again, this is an awareness and branding issue that is something that any niche board faces. Now, this is sort of the mirror response of what we were talking about earlier. When you ask job seekers, okay, so if you're using a job board, what do you find most frustrating about them? Top two items, really top three items, are all pretty close. Lack of response from companies, fake job postings, so the old bait and switch, that they run into where, oh, that wasn't really a job, but now we have your resume and we want to keep you on file. Or a site that requires registration to actually see the job. So they see something that looks interesting and they click on it, and the site's requiring that they register. And then tied to that is a site that would actually make them pay to see the jobs. Job seekers just don't like any of those. I think the lack of response from companies is, of course, an opportunity for job boards I'll talk about a little bit later here. Now, on this next slide, I've tried to sort of sum up my takeaways, my personal takeaways for job seekers. First, social media is real. It's important. It's not going to go away in terms of job seekers. They're using it. Two, job sites need to be easy to use. They need to be focused. And three, job seekers get frustrated when they don't get any a response from employers. And we all understand as job board professionals that you often have very little control over that, but there are certain things that you can put into your site to facilitate employers responding to candidates, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's it for job seekers. Let's talk about what the human resources and recruiting professionals answered when we surveyed them. Well, surprise, social media is important. When we asked them, which of the following recruitment tools and channels are you using most frequently? 72% said social media. And we'll get a refinement of that in just a second. But then they went on to say, we find career sites, we find referrals useful. And I think there's probably a little bit of dissonance there on the referrals, because I've seen a number of studies that say that human resources recruiting professionals talk about referrals being important, but when they actually source out hires, referrals don't usually come up very high. But nonetheless, in their minds, that's an important tool for them. Then general job boards and niche job boards. So I think you look at this scenario from, say, 3 or 4 years ago, the big news, of course, is social media at the top of the list. Okay, so let's look at the next question. If you sort of narrow down and talk to human resources recruiting professionals about social media and the channels they're using, far and away LinkedIn is number one, with 97% of the respondents saying that they're using it. And then Twitter after that, and then some of these others considerably below that. I think for most human resources and recruiting professionals that I talk to, they look at LinkedIn as essentially a huge online sourcing database. Perhaps less of a social network, although obviously it has a huge social aspect to it, but really more of a sourcing tool, whereas Twitter is perhaps more of a social tool and less of a sourcing network. But I think both of these platforms are changing, as well as Facebook, and we'll come back in a year, we may see very different results. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do another quick question. And then again, this is a question that I asked the HR recruiting pros. Where do you think that HR will increase spending during the coming year? Are they going to spend it on social media? Are they going to spend it on their company career sites? Are they going to spend it on referral programs? Niche job boards or general job boards? Just go ahead and pick one. Where do you think it's most likely that HR will put more money, put money where their mouth is during 2011? And I think we're getting some good response here. And let's take a look at the results. 57% of you said social media, and then 25% for company career sites, 15% for niche boards, none for general job boards, and then relatively small percent for referral programs. Okay, well, let's see what they actually said, and this is in order. I think you folks had it nailed pretty well. Social media led the pack, company career sites, referral programs, and niche job boards. Okay, so if that's where the money is increasing, where are we going to see a decrease in spending? Let's take a look at the next slide. Third-party recruiters led off, then newspapers, career fairs, and general job boards. And I have to be honest, when I first saw this, kind of scratched my head a bit about the third-party recruiters. I realized for many of them, there's a large fee associated with it, but they solve a big problem for human resource departments that have been downsized over the past 2 years, which is that they can produce results where where there simply isn't the internal bandwidth to do anything. But I think in this case, money wins out, and they view that they've got things like job boards and LinkedIn to replace third-party recruiters. So there's the news there. Now, when we asked HR and recruiting folks, if you're using job boards, what are the features that are most valuable to you? Number one is quality of candidates. In a way, I guess that's not a surprise. Number two, the ability to search a resume bank. Now, these next two I thought were kind of interesting. At 53% of the respondents were saying that they wanted to be able to email selected groups of job seekers. This is not necessarily a common service that's offered by job boards, at least the job boards that I've dealt with and the ones that I follow. So I think there's an opportunity there because this is obviously something that that folks would pay for. And then I guess this is sort of tied to the rise of social media, the ability to interact directly with job seekers. So job seekers are saying, we get dissatisfied when we can't interact directly with employers. Employers are saying, that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to interact directly with job seekers. So I think there's an opportunity there. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide here. What's the biggest challenge? Not surprisingly, well, or maybe surprisingly, is the lack of qualified applicants. Now, you would think that if you're in a situation where you have 5 or more applicants per open position and a long recession, that employers would be in a situation where they'd be flooded with qualified applicants. But in fact, employers are saying that's not necessarily the case. And I think that it's incumbent on those of us in the job board industry to help them find qualified applicants. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I think it's a huge opportunity. So let's have another question here. If the quality of candidates for employers is currently their biggest challenge, what is your job doing to address the issue? And I want you just to pick one of these in terms of what most accurately reflects what you're doing. You're providing screening and filtering questions that eliminate unqualified candidates, or providing that option for your employers. You're offering an agency-type screening for client-enhanced services. So, in essence, you're acting as a recruiter. You're providing integration tools like Jobg8 that provide applicant filters. You're adding enhancements to your system in the near future, other than these that are listed, or you're not working on that right now. You're focusing on other aspects of your board. So just go ahead and pick one, and let's see what our audience has to say about this. And the results are, well, it looks like we have sort of a tie between planning to add enhancements, so basically putting in some enhancements in the near future or adding integration tools, and then putting in screening questions, and then 20% of our respondents here are saying that you're not currently working on applicant quality at all. Maybe you feel like what you're currently offering is good enough, or maybe that's not a concern among your audience. So it's interesting results. Okay, so let's go on here. What are job board operators worried about? And I think this guy reflects some of the people that I work with. It's reflected me at certain points in the past. Well, when we ask job board operators what they view as the biggest threats to their operation in the next 12 to 24 months, far and away the strongest response was for the ongoing effects of the recession. Now, the next two were essentially the same, growth in the free job sites. So these are the sites where an employer can post a job at no charge or access resumes at no charge. And LinkedIn, which I've heard some recruiters and some people in the industry say, oh, LinkedIn isn't a job board. I think at least inside the industry, most people I know would say it's a job board and it's a threat to my job board. And then, following along behind that, things like search engine intrusion, the growth of the aggregators, and so on.